Guten Tag, ladies and gentlemen. German name 1990 here once again. I hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas. I hope everyone got what they wanted. I got quite a bit of things for Christmas this year. Considering that it was just a terrific year, 2022 for me, I had a lot of really nice things happen. For example, I went to see The Price is Right live back on March 5th. I went to see Wheel of Fortune live back in October 23rd. Now, although I wasn't picked to be a contestant on either show, I still had a great time, and I remember having some pictures taken of me at the event by other people who attended, and I put the pictures up on Instagram, and not only did Wheel of Fortune Live's social media account like the photos that I put up, I made sure to tag them and everything, and not only did they like the photos, but they also had me featured on their story for a while. Now, their story is no longer up, but I managed to take screenshots of the story before it was taken down. You can see the original photos that I took over at my Instagram page. My username is the same over there. But the biggest highlights of this year probably had to be April. On April 6th, I went to see the Sonic 2 film premiere with a bunch of fellow Sonic fans, and all of us loved it. It was the best time I ever had in a movie theater. I remember I made sure to see the film's early premiere in 40X over at Regal City North. And I just had a marvelous time. A whole bunch of fellow Sonic fans were there, which just made the time even better. But the night before, I went up to Milwaukee to see Bon Jovi perform in front of thousands of fans. It was the first time I've ever been to a concert since I was born. And Bon Jovi made it just a fantastic experience that evening. I am so happy that I got to see him when I did. So to end off the year 2022, what a great year it was. I thought I'd show you the origins of how I made this Wheel of Fortune animation way back in June. So let me take a look here. This is it. Okay. These are all vectors that I came up with values and everything like that, so don't worry about that. What I want you to focus on is this. This is the gold stair stage area. And let me show you how I made it. I made a whole bunch of lines. Now I'm going to have to ungroup that. There we go. And I'm going to have to ungroup that again. This is the border. I made this. This is part of the whole thing. And then I'm going to ungroup all that. And you'll see all the lines and everything. Hold on. So, did I make each line one by one? No, I didn't. As you can see here... Oh, that's just the ring. I'm going to do that. That's how I made it happen. So I made each line, made copies, grouped them all, and so on until I got until I figured it's good enough. And then I saved it as this. This is the picture. I saved this as a picture. But then I made a few more adjustments to it. For example, I cropped off the edges so that way it would be nice and smooth when I put it into another file over at Publisher. I made sure to insert as a picture. And then here are the files that I used to make the wheel used in the intro. This was my first attempt. As you can see, I used... Hold on. Wrong one. For this one, here we go. For all the numbers and everything, I used the Chesterfield font. For all the cash wedges, for the bankrupt and lose a turn, I used Times New Roman bold. Come on, there we go. Right there we go. Yeah, Times New Roman bold for bankrupt and lose a turn. So my first attempt was okay, but it could have been better. After getting another look at the intro, at the actual intro used from September of 92 all the way until the summer of 94, I decided to try again, and I used a much thinner version of Chesterfield called Volta. So there's that. Volta MT Med, Volta T Medium, basically that's the full version of it. I made sure to bolden it. And then what I also did was to give it, to have it help it blend in with the wedge a little bit. I gave it a black color. Let's take a look here. Yeah, gave it a black color, and I gave it a 25% transparency. Now the other thing I did, and this is the same thing here with both Volta and Chesterfield, have a 7 with a ball-shaped bottom. So what I did was I made the 7 in another font. That's the font that I did. And I made sure to give this one an outline. So I took a screenshot of what I've done so far, and using that I was able to determine the numbers for the RGB. As you can see, it's a very dark grayish purple kind of color, because I wanted it to be the same thickness. And instead of having it be and instead of using a black color, I just made it the same exact dark purple color as the outline. So made sure. So that was my first attempt at putting the 7 in there. I used the same font as well, and I made sure to use the same colors there. But other than that, I used a black color with a little bit of transparency so that I can make everything out. So I saved that. So I saved all of that as a file. Save that as a picture, and there we go. Oh, the other thing I did when I made the revisions, I did a little bit of something for the 1 over at the $1,500 space. While the $sign, the 5, and the zeros are all Volta, I had the 1 in Times New Roman as well. So that's the other big difference that I made. So there's that. And then I shrunk this picture little by little so that instead of having the edges of each number pixelated, I would have them done a little bit more smoothly. So after taking care of everything that I wanted to take care of, I put everything into Publisher, and I added the stage, I added the letters. For the dots in the show's title, I used Times New Roman. And then for all the letters in the show's name, I used Chesty for the of. However, for the R, instead of using Chesty, I used a font called DXS Bust. And the reason for it is because Chesty, there is a hole in the letter R, and the show's actual title does not have that. So I decided to use DXS Bust instead, since it's a variation that doesn't have that. It just has the little slit in the letter R. So here's what I did. So after doing that, I copied it. Copied all of that into Microsoft PowerPoint. Now this is all done on PowerPoint 2003. I know this thing is maybe outdated by maybe outdated by 2 decades, but it's still, you know, by nearly 2 decades, I can imagine. But I don't care whether or not it's outdated. If it still works for me, great. So I put all of that into PowerPoint. Also made the background as well. Let me show you that. So that's the background for the wheel itself. Let me see if I can find. Oh, here it is. Here's the wheel itself. Here's the, again, I shrunk it so all the lines would come out smooth, but that's the wheel used in the background. And I put a picture of it all into PowerPoint. Now I didn't realize this until later on as I was making changes, but I remembered doing something, but I remember a tool that I was taught many years ago. When I was in college, I took this one computer course, and the teacher that I had for this course was really, really, really good. And he taught me about this tool. There you are. All right, there's that. This, it's not what I'm looking for. Where are you at, my friend? Here we go. This is it. This right here, what I'm pointing to, is what's called the Format Painter. Let me highlight that for you, Format Painter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to go back here. Hold on. Here's what I'm going to have to do. I don't use this quite often. And what you're going to want to do in order to make things very quickly is you're going to have to double click that, like you may have just heard me do it. Like you just hear me do that. Boom. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Let's get rid of that. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Here's what you want to do. I forgot to ungroup this. Silly old me. Ungroup that. Perfect. Now we're going to mean business. All right, now we're going to go back here. And there we go. That's how we made the changes. Simple as that. You just have to click. You have to click that. And then you have to do that. And then click on that. And changing everything will be a breeze. It will keep the rotation that you had. All it will do is change the picture. This is a really, really nice tool if you want to use this, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'm going to do what I did afterwards is I saved it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Do it actually. I'm just going to show you how I did it. And I'm going to save it all as PNG files. And we're not even going to do that either. We are going to, yeah, we're going to save as, and we'll save it as this file, 1992 intro animated, and then there will be a dialog that asks you, do you want just the current slide or every slide? Select every slide, and then we go here. And then we will, so these are this is each slide used in the animation. So you do what I told you earlier. Earlier this year, you open up in GIMP, and then you have to save it as a GIF file. I'll provide, and I'll show you, and I'll have the link in the description below so you can refer to that. Now, one of the things I said earlier was that if you can call it whatever you want to call it, but when you export it as a GIF animation, but in order to do that, make sure you have file name such and such, whatever you want, but add .gif at the end. Other than that, you can call it whatever you want, just as long as you have .gif underneath. Now, I was so happy with how all of this came out that I decided to make another variation, only with different dollar values. As you can see here, whoops, here we go. This is the actual layout used in the original 1992 computerized animation used on the show. But I always like to have fun with my creations, so I added a few more dollar values. For one, there was no 650, as the show was not using that as a playable dollar value at the time, from 1979 all the way until 2012. I remember being very excited when 650 came back. 750 was used back in the early 90s, but it was only seen for the first 2 rounds. But I decided to add that here as well. 450 was used in the first 3 rounds. It wasn't used in round 4. And then of course you have 850, which is down here. The show did not use that as a playable dollar value from 1979 all the way until September of last year. I remember being, all of my online friends were very pleased to know that 850 was coming back. Not as excited when 650 was going to come back, because I knew when 650 returned, I knew that could mean something for other dollar values, and sure enough, I was right. It took a while, but 850 came back, and 950 became a playable dollar value on the celebrity version of Wheel of Fortune back nearly 2 years ago, back in January of last year. Now, I don't know for sure if the show used 950 as a playable dollar value before. They have used it on set pieces used back in the late 80s, early 90s. They used it on an intro layout used from 1989 all the way until 1992. But they didn't use it as dollar. Now, we don't know every single layout that the show has used. But I remember hearing that in 1979, the show had some hour-long shows, and they had some layouts with various dollar values, including 2500, which would not be used on the show again until 1987, when the show dropped the shopping format and let contestants play for cash. But there was a wheel used in a special head-to-head round full of, a whole bunch of dollar values. And I'm not saying 950 was used in this layout, but was used in that layout, but then again, I wouldn't be surprised. Anything's possible at this point. One thing I really love to see are those hour-long layouts. And then for the 1500, I brought this up to 1250 because, well, Bob Goen. Out of all the 4-digit dollar values the show had ever used, it used 8 4-digit dollar values. It used 1,000, it used 1250, it used 1,500, it used 2,000, it used 2,500, it used 3,500, it used 5,000, and for 1 week back in April of 2014, they used a $6,000 wedge. In honor of 6,000 episodes in syndication. I'm sorry to say that that value was never hit. But out of all the 4-digit dollar values the show had ever used, 1250 is the most unique because it's the only one to end in something other than 00, in this case 50. It's also the only one to have its 100th digit be something other than a 0 or 5, in this case it's a 2. I remember first hearing about the 1250 back in 2002 when I saw a game show site, and it had some stuff about the daytime era of Wheel of Fortune, the daytime version. And he had some screenshots from this whole time, from the daytime era. He used screenshots from the Woolery era, the Pat Sajak era, the Rolf Benerschke era. And it was divided into 2 pages. The second one was all about Bob Goen, the Bob Goen era. And despite stating that 1250 was used as a dollar value, the person who owned the site never put any screenshots of that up. In fact, it wasn't until Easter time of 2007 that I finally got to see photographic proof of this existing. And I remember being very excited. It's like, wow, finally I get to see that. So that was very exciting. I remember that was very exciting for me. So with that in mind, I decided to play around with the layout a little bit. I did some swapping here and there. And I said I did. So I decided to make another version with that. So let me X out of that. And I'm going to scroll up, I'm going to open up this one. It's pretty much the same thing, only with different dollar values. So that's what I wanted to show you. And if you like what I saw, please be sure to leave a like, drop a comment, hit the red button to subscribe, ring the bell to turn on notifications, and also be sure to check me out at instagram.com/GermanName1990 and DeviantArt.com/GermanName1990. This is GermanName1990 speaking. I thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys again in 2023. Bye.